Leaving the 99 in search of the one. This is Kevin from the Hope for the Journey podcast. You can check us out at www.myhopejourney.co or on iTunes or your favorite podcaster at the Hope for the Journey podcast. I want to take a couple of minutes and share with you 5 things I wish that you knew about drug-addicted people. If you're like me, you probably got your theology of drug addiction from Miami Vice or Law and Order. Things you've seen on TV, and that's what you think of the average drug addict. I can remember years ago when I found out I had a friend and his son was a drug addict. And 2 things popped in my head. Number 1, man, that sucks. And number 2, man, what did he do wrong? And I didn't realize how naive I was until I had a son of my own struggle with drug addiction, and my family had to come face to face with this. And to be honest, realize that the church never prepared us for this. So I want to share with you 5 things that I've learned about drug-addicted people that I think could help you the same way it helped me overcome some of my assumptions about drug addicts and help me have more of a heart to minister to drug-addicted people. The first thing I want you to know is drug-addicted people are just that. They're people. They're not labels. We in America love labels. We know we like liberal, conservative. And when we say things like that, I hate liberals because they're blah, blah, blah. I hate conservatives because they're blah, blah, blah. It's easy to hate a label. But when you have a friend at work or somebody in your family and they're a liberal or they're a conservative, and you realize, oh my gosh, there's so many things that we have in common that we have built a friendship on just because we have political differences, that's no reason to hate you. And by the same token, when we label people, it's easy to marginalize them. When we say the homeless or drug addicts, it's easy to just go, somebody needs to do something about homelessness. Somebody needs to help the homeless. It's easy to have a level of apathy and think somebody else is going to take care of it when you think of a label. And the same thing, you can be so indifferent. I remember when my son got arrested, and I saw on the news where they'd written an article, and I clicked on some comments about it, and somebody wrote, why don't the police just kill them all and let God sort them out? Do you realize how apathetic that is? How pathetic that is? But when we devalue people to the point where we just see them as labels, we don't see it as somebody who lost a life. We see it as a label who is no longer with us. Genesis tells us that we were created in the image of God. We are image bearers. Ephesians tells us that we're to imitate Christ, that we are to actively bear that image that we were created in. And we've got to remember, these aren't just homeless people, or these just aren't drug addicts. These are people who were created in the image of God, who have been called to be image bearers of God. And somebody needs to share with them the truth of the gospel, the hope there is in Jesus Christ, the love of Christ, and the hope there is for redemption through Jesus. If we see people as image bearers of Christ instead of labels, how much more will our heart be drawn to minister to them? The second thing I want to share with you is this. Drug-addicted people do have families. When I used to do homeless ministry, one of the naive things that I used to think, I would look around, I would look at all these homeless people, and I would say, why in the world do these people not have families who will take care of them? Because I know in my life, my parents would move heaven and earth if something happened to me and I couldn't provide for my family to make sure my family never ended up on the street. They would do whatever's in their power to help us. And so through that frame of reference, I was looking at these people go, do they not have people who care about them? But the truth of the matter is what I learned, having my own child in drug addiction, who at some point was homeless himself or living in a crack house, somebody could easily say, doesn't he have somebody who loves him? Doesn't he have somebody who cares about him? But what they don't understand is a lot of times when these drug-addicted people are on the street, when they're homeless or they're in the crack house, a parent or a family has had to make that hard decision to say, if you won't get help, you can't stay here anymore. Or we can no longer help you until you are willing to get help. And so the person chooses, because they want to stay in their sin, chooses to go live in a crack house or go live out on the street rather than face the responsibility of having to get straight. So there's families who do care about people and are willing to help them. And the second reason I want you to know that is sometimes we say asinine things. And we don't think about who might be hearing that, who might be struggling. Because to be honest with you, when we first dealt with this, we kept it to ourselves. And we kept our struggle to ourselves, so people didn't even know we were going through this. And you never know when you say something offhanded, that there's somebody who is struggling with a child who's in drug addiction. You say something cold and heartless like, well, the police just ought to kill them all and let God sort them out, which actually happened to me. When my son was arrested and I was looking at the comments on the news article, I saw people make horrendous judgments about me and my wife and our parenting and our son. They don't know me. They don't know what we were going through, but they were saying these hateful things. And so we might miss out on an opportunity to minister to a family if we don't keep in mind that they want to see their child restored. The third thing I want you to know is for every drug addict you think you see, there's 10 that you have missed out on. It amazes me as I went through this journey with my son that all these signs that I've picked up on that I was blind to of people who are having withdrawals or people who are currently on something. As a matter of fact, when I went to pick my son up from the rehab he was at one time, we stopped at a Wendy's, and the girl making Frosties, dude, she was high as a kite. And apparently everybody else that she worked with was oblivious to this fact. But me and my son are like, oh my goodness, man, she's really jonesing right now. So for every drug addicted person you think you see, because they don't look like they look on the television shows, there are probably 10 or 15 that you haven't seen. Jesus told his disciples that the harvest was plentiful, but the workers were few. And like I said earlier, the church in America did not prepare me for what I went through with a son who was drug addicted. And it has not prepared people to deal with this crisis that is taking America by storm. There are plenty of drug addicted people out there who need the hope of Christ, who need the truth of the scriptures. But we need people who are willing to learn what to do to minister to drug addicted people and to have the heart and calling to minister to drug addicted people. So the harvest is plentiful, but right now the workers are few. The fourth thing I want you to know about drug addicted people is this. They're not all bad. Once again, you see these drug addicted people in the movies and the TV shows, and you're like, they're all just evil people. They're breaking windows to rob, to get drug money, or they're killing people to get drug money, or just because they're in a crazy drug stage. To be honest with you, I had the opportunity over the last 13 months to meet a lot of people at the rehab that my son was at. And you know what? Most of them were good people. Now, I know what you're thinking. Romans says, none is righteous, not one. And Jesus himself said, why do you call me good? No one is good. I'm talking about in the secular sense of good. These are people when they're sober, they love their families and they're generous and they're caring. My wife was pregnant while my son was going through this. And I can't tell you the number of times we'd show up to visit, and these young men who didn't know us would tell us how they were praying for us, and they would encourage us and tell us that they were excited for us. And when she had the baby, I mean, they just fawned over this child and just encouraged us in this. And so, drug addicted people a lot of times are good people. The problem is when they're generous and they get on drugs, they become selfish. When they are entrepreneurial, when they get on drugs, they become manipulative. They're good people, but this sin gets a hold of them and twists the gifts that God has given them. The last thing that I want you to know about drug addicted people, just because your sin or my sin is more socially acceptable than their sin, does not make us better than them. We are never going to be able to minister to drug addicted people if we think we're better than they are. That's the whole reason Jesus told the disciples to get the log out of their own eye before they went and ministered to the splinter in someone else's eye. God opposes a haughty spirit. And if we go to a drug addicted person and we're acting like we're better than them, if we're being like the Pharisee who was praying and the tax collector came into the temple and the Pharisee's like, God, I thank you that I'm not like this tax collector. If our attitude is, God, I thank you that I'm not like this drug addict, not only is this drug addict not going to take us seriously, God says he will oppose our haughty spirit. So what I want to encourage you guys, learn what you can about drug addiction and how through the gospel we can minister to drug addicts and help them understand that they're created in God's image and God has a higher calling for them than the sin that they're trapped in. And if we can get past these assumptions, then our apathy will turn into empathy, and we will go and minister the gospel. From the guys at Hope for the Journey podcast, grace and peace.